up, bud?
Benny!
You want to record a podcast?
You know what? Only if we ask a what-if question.
What if the Vatican held many secrets?
Many secrets, bro.
So many secrets.
Bruh.
Oh,
Brush.
Jesus.
Oh, God.
Dropped a crystal on the table. Watch out.
You guys, if you did hear that, it was actually a crystal falling over in our studio.
They need to make their presence known.
Hey, guys, if you thought it wasn't real, it's real out here. We be dropping crystals in the studio.
Things are getting reorganized in the studio today. It's a little messy.
It's good. It's a little work in progress, but the vibe is nice. We got a lamp on the floor.
Many studio upgrades in process. We got a new computer last week.
Woo!
Got a new desk coming tomorrow.
What? I feel like I feel like we should be sitting on the floor right now with like a Ouija board.
We could. Well, I don't have a Ouija board. We could sit on the floor if you want. I started answering that question before I let you finish. I got a butt in the floor. I mean, we were halfway there.
I got 2 to 3 things.
Started responding before you finished your sentence. I apologize.
We could, but no, it's just the vibe in here is very like, let's have a seance. We've got a blue essential oil distributor.
I got some
lamp.
cypress in there in case you need any.
Oh,
we can get that. We can get that going.
Let's do that. Make it a little.
Get it misting.
Make it a little smoky in here too. There's a giant crystal lamp, and then there's just sort of a sad wired lamp on the floor.
I might go do this right after we record tonight.
Okay.
Got a paycheck, and I'm doing stupid things with it. My job sometimes involves getting paid in 6-month increments in large sums, and then I gotta convince myself to not buy reckless shit with it.
I didn't make any money for 6 months, and then I made all the money.
Right. So now I need a salt lamp pyramid, which is a thing that they sell at the co-op.
I didn't hear the word you just said.
Salt lamp pyramid.
Pyramid. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. We need one, right? Or maybe several?
I mean...
It's a business expense, isn't it?
We should
studio decoration.
I think technically it is.
It
actually
probably is.
We should try to film. That's not what we do here. We should try to record a full episode, just each holding a pyramid in our hand, and like see how it affects our vibe. Damn, that cypress is wild.
It's pretty strong.
It's pretty strong.
I may have not diluted it quite enough.
We may have to let that.
Okay, yeah, we'll let it circulate for a minute. Hey, chill.
You're good. It's piney. It smells seasonal.
However,
you want to talk about Vatican secrets?
I'd like nothing more.
Okay.
What do we have any announcements to make this week?
I don't think so.
We do have one quick announcement.
I think we do.
My mistake.
One quick announcement. So every once in a while, we make a Patreon episode free to the public.
We haven't done that in a minute.
And so we did that this week. Well,
did we?
Of last week. Yeah, we did.
Oh, you picked the one we were talking shit about people, huh?
Well, I mean, it's already up there.
Well, I didn't know it was free. Did I do that? Did I mess it up?
Yeah, but...
Oh, great.
It's all good.
Oops. Well, there you go. Have at it.
So if you go to patreon.com/whatifpodcast, for just $5, we actually do 2 episodes a week. You are hearing the free version. There's also a paid version as well. This week we decided to make the paid version inadvertently or advertently free this week. So
that's actually a really good one because it's mostly my review of the new Jeremy Corbell Bob Lazar movie. And I attended the premiere in LA last week along with What If correspondent Lydia Liza.
Yes.
So you can hear my review and our discussion around the nonsense that is Jeremy Corbell films.
Also, spoiler alert, within the first 30 minutes of that episode, I literally laugh until I cry, like hard tears. That takes me a little while to get back together.
Yeah, well, my mistake worked out okay. That was actually one of our better Patreon episodes, I think.
Yeah, it'll
it's been a while since we've done that. So.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done that. So yeah, if you've been on the fence about whether or not you want to join the Patreon, hop over there, give a listen to the free one, and then know that if you join for just $5 a month, you get access to like 64-ish episodes.
We've been doing it for over a year.
Yeah. Plus, you get an additional new one every single week. So go check that out. Go listen to that free one, and It's a fun one.
Tight. Tell me about the Vatican Secret Archives, please.
Oh boy. Because
I mostly researched the parts about the aliens and the conspiracies.
You don't say.
If you want to give us some actual information, that might be a good place to start.
Okay, I can definitely handle that. So there is a giant parking lot in the Vatican, in Vatican City, that is adjacent to the Vatican Library. And underneath the Vatican Library is a archive. In Latin, it is titled Archivum Secretum Vaticanum, which is roughly translated to the Secret Vatican Archive, or the Vatican Secret Archive.
I've heard some varying reports about how accurate that translation is.
So that translation to the letter is true, but secretum actually is probably better translated to mean private. So
not secretion.
Gross. Gross. So not to pull the rug out right away from the secretiveness of the archive.
It's underground though. That's still pretty secretive.
It is definitely underground. It is under that parking lot.
Just architects going forward, if you don't want people to come up with weird conspiracies about your buildings, put them above ground.
That's true.
Way less suspicious.
Also, even if it is a roughly incorrect translation, maybe don't put the word secret in the name.
Also that.
That's not
if it's secret and it's underground, I'm thinking up conspiracies about it.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know what else to tell you.
It was so the archive itself was founded in 1612. And I'm actually not sure by which pope.
I had it somewhere in my notes, but who cares? They all have similar names anyway.
Yeah, it's the 7th or the 9th
and they make them up
or
for
the
themselves,
25th.
so,
yeah.
You know.
A pope founded it in 1612 and said, hey, we've got a lot of important stuff. We should probably put it somewhere. So they started putting it in this Vatican Secret Archive. It has grown and grown and grown because inside of it is collections of documents that are donated, documents that are found. There's also, it's also a record of all papal correspondence. So there are copies of all of the papal letters going in and out of the Vatican as well inside of the Vatican Secret Archives.
It was Pope Paul V, by the way.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And so we don't know how many documents. The estimates are anywhere in the tens of thousands to potentially in the hundreds of thousands of documents. What we do know...
I saw most of the estimates I saw were around 30.
30,000?
Individual documents.
Well, so 35,000 documents have been indexed.
Oh, Lord.
But there are potentially 5 to 10 to we don't even know how many times more than that because they actually aren't indexing the vast majority of the archive itself.
The shelving takes up 53 linear miles.
Yeah, I read that one. That's pretty fucking nuts if you think about that. 53 miles of shelves.
Yeah.
And it's what I don't know is it multiple layers of shelves?
It has to be.
It has to be,
That's
right?
what I was going to say. It might not be quite as impressive as it sounds.
But even if those...
Because I'm picturing, one shelf, and obviously that's not how you would store things.
Right. So, but even 5 shelves high, I don't know, 100 feet of shelving, that's 500 feet. I guess you have on the other side of that, then you have 1,000 feet. But still, though, that's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet of 5 shelf high.
Yeah, it's real fucking big, I'm sure.
It's real big. So 35,000 of these documents from the Secret Archive have been indexed, but there's not a super urgent effort to index the rest of the documents.
I came across an Atlantic article today talking about an effort to using AI to start digitizing and indexing some of it.
I saw that too. The crux that they bring up in that article, and you can find it mentioned in other places, is it's really, 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 really fucking hard to index this stuff because, well, for a variety of reasons. The first one, a lot of it's handwritten.
Yeah.
So when it's handwritten, especially in like Old English or Old Latin cursive, the lettering is borderline. Some of it's impossible to read. Like people can't actually read it. They don't know what it says.
Well, and there's going to be a ton of variance from document to document, even page to page, line to line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tons of variance. The same thing happens because a lot of it is also done in typesets, but it's done in those old calligraphy style typesets where the letters are designed to look very similar to each other. And so when they're all lined up in these typesets where the letters are designed to look really similar, it's super duper hard for AI and computers to actually like choose what letter starts and what letter ends where.
Heck.
And then it can't actually translate any of the shit that it's even looking at.
How does that work? Do you basically have to scan every document?
Yeah, they scan it and then the AI uses like color coding to try to break where the letters start and finish.
Even
And
scanning
then
all
guesses on the letters.
Even scanning all that stuff seems like a huge undertaking.
Okay, so
Like,
that's another reason. So the actual scanning of those things, there isn't like when we think about paper today, we think about either A11 in the UK or A12 in the United States. Everything is 8.5 by 11 for the vast majority of the paper that we use as a society, like the vast majority. Back then, there was no like default printer paper in fucking the 1200s.
Right.
So you have scrolls, one of which was the Knights of Templars trial testimonies that was literally written on like a 90-meter long scroll that was like, I think like 2.5 or 3 feet wide. Yeah, okay. Go
Right.
nuts. Good luck photographing 90 meters of, and this is the last reason why it's super hard to catalog this stuff, is it's super fragile. We're talking about paper and ink that has seen a lot and has been moved and buried and lost and found and aged, and it's fragile.
They have at least one document dating to the end of the 8th century.
That's fucking crazy.
So we're talking about stuff that's in excess of 1,000 years old that
Yeah.
you're trying to
The
and
1,300-year-old
preserve.
piece of paper? Like,
Yeah.
what? What?
I don't even know how that is still an object that you could handle at all.
For sure. It's, and I imagine some of it has probably been put in some of those like preservation slips where they have it kind of like, laminated or
Sure,
sealed or
At what point, and then how well has that been preserved?
Totally.
And like,
totally.
how well was it preserved prior to that?
Totally.
Just anything that's 1,300 years old
Totally.
is not going to be in great shape,
Exactly.
I would think.
So for all the reasons we just described, there hasn't been a huge effort to index the rest of this stuff because basically it's really fucking hard and they don't have a ton of people to do it.
And I would guess a lot of it is like not important.
Yeah, I mean, I would also gather that that's probably the case. A lot of it's probably like internal papal communications and just like
Or I should say not like, none of it is, I bet a lot of it is not urgent, at least.
sure.
Like maybe in the future there's some need, or like you're preserving it for the sake of preserving it, but correspondences from 1,000 years ago, like no one is asking for that stuff,
Right. The flip side of that coin, however, and part of what leads us to today's episode is because of a lot of it hasn't been indexed and because they actually control access to these documents really, really intensely.
Well, it wasn't open at all until the 70s
Yeah.
or early 80s.
1881 is the date I had, was the first time it was open to the public.
1881?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
No?
You have something different?
I believe that's 19.
1981? Is it really?
Mm-hmm. So I there was a letter from a historian to the Pope in 1979 asking that
yeah.
it be opened.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think it wasn't open into like now. If you're have a research based need to access something,
Yep.
you can request access. You have to say specifically what you want access to. They limit the number of items you can pull at any one time.
Only 60 people a day are allowed into the archive.
And you're limited in terms of how much time you have to access the things you need.
Yeah.
And if you request something that turns out to not be what you need or is in a language that you can't read or whatever,
you got to do it all again to
too
go
bad.
back. Yep.
Yeah. But I believe that process didn't start until the like 1980-ish.
Yeah, I think the date I had for 1881 was the first time they actually let like researchers and cardinals into it in the Vatican itself.
Got
like
it.
other people internally could go and like check stuff out.
Got it.
But the point that you just said in that last sentence that I think is super duper important is you have to request which document you want to read.
It doesn't make any sense. If it's not indexed, how do you request a document?
You actually can't. And that's why that's a big part of what leads to all the secrecy is if only 35,000 of what is potentially hundreds of thousands of documents have been indexed, we don't know what's in there. And we don't know if they know and they don't want to index it because they don't want to tell people.
So I don't understand how that process would work, though. Some of it is indexed, right? They have a website where you can view certain records.
Yep.
So you can request those items.
Right.
Can you then request items related to those? Or can you just not request and therefore not view any of the items that they haven't indexed yet?
You have to know an item exists in order to ask to see it.
And the only way you would know that is by...
if it's in their index.
So basically any of the stuff that hasn't been indexed is not viewable.
Right. And no, they don't allow for researchers to go like scan the shelves and go, maybe this is of interest. Maybe this is of value.
Which I understand that of like when you're dealing with things that are hundreds, if not 1,000 or more years old, there's a lot of damage that could be done just by handling things.
Totally. But I guess the flip side of that coin, though, is there are people who are trained in like handling old documents who could be tasked with, hey, can you make some sort of organization out of this? But it doesn't seem like that's been a priority for them. And so for all we know, there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of unindexed, unknowable, unseeable, unfindable documents and pieces of information that go back to edicts and papal bulls and communications and potentially research and things that potentially were confiscated under the control of the Catholic Church during certain time periods, going to your point back as far as like over 1,000 years ago.
Did you find... I'm trying to find like any publicly searchable, like how would I go about finding out what stuff is archived?
I don't.
It's not apparent to me from their website.
I don't know.
Unless I'm just missing something obvious.
No, I don't know. I wonder if it's something where like maybe they only, you know how there's those different scholarly like journal search engines. You know what I'm talking about?
Like WorldCat and such?
Yeah, that shit.
And what was the other? JSTOR or whatever the other one was?
Like maybe they got like World VAT for Vatican only documents or something. And that's how you search it. I legit don't know, but I didn't see anywhere that you can actually like do your own searching.
Let's see. Under access and consultation on the archives website, research in the...
It just says, fuck off.
Research in the Archivo Segreto Vaticano is free of charge and open to qualified scholars conducting scientific studies. All researchers must have a university degree or an equivalent university diploma. Clergymen must possess a licential degree or PhD. Permission is granted to consult the documents in the archives up until the end of the... What? Oh, you can only view things going back until 1939.
Yeah, so that's another part of it.
That seems like a very small percentage of the things that they have.
Wait. Until 1939. That's right. So they stopped.
It says today permission is granted to consult the documents in the archives up until the end of 1939.
Yes.
So does that mean nothing after 1939?
Correct.
Only things prior to 1939.
Which, that's interesting. 1939. What happened in 1939?
Well, it was the end of the papacy of Pius XI.
Uh-huh. It was also the start of something pretty important, too.
You mean World War II?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
World War II, and we did a full episode about the Foo Fighters.
Mm.
Nee. We'll get there later.
Okay. There's some other weird. Well, whatever.
Weird what? Weird access things?
I think there might have been some things starting around then that records of which would make the Catholic Church in general look pretty shitty.
Anything specific there?
Their stance on Hitler and Nazis.
I didn't know they had one.
Well, they definitely didn't oppose them.
Oh.
During the war.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And that seems like not the best thing you could have done.
No, the decision did not age well at all.
Nope.
No. And then more recent controversies with the Catholic Church as well, I'm assuming.
Yes. Agreed.
So, okay, you need an admission card to access a reading room. They can be obtained at the admission secretariat from Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 10:30. To request one, you have to send an application, provide a presentation letter from a recognized university. You have to specify the academic qualification obtained. You have to attach a photocopy of a valid ID and a photograph, and then you cannot bring anything in with you, including computers, pens, cameras, nothing that you could use to like document or take notes on anything.
Right.
Wow.
It's pretty hardcore, man. So the weird thing about this is they don't do themselves any favors. If their goal to tell people is there's nothing secretive here, it's just like a really old collection that we want to make sure is like stays around for a long time. Alive was born. Oh, that's an OG one. That doesn't come out in a hot minute. They don't do themselves any favors with the ways they restrict it, the ways they hide it, what they make available, what they don't, etc., to make people not think that the shit
they got aliens buried down there.
That they got some aliens buried down there. So in 2012, they tried to tell people, "Hey, guys, don't worry, nothing's weird. We'll show you."
You know what that usually means? Something's weird.
Something's weird. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like that whole shit with the Denver airport when they were like, "Ha ha, we're building the end of the world bunker" on their fucking ads or whatever inside of the airport, and everyone was like, "It's fucking weird, guys. Why are you making jokes about this stuff?"
Also,
seems like
no one asked. We assumed you were remodeling, but maybe not now.
Yeah, but now we feel weird about this. So in March 2012, the Vatican had a show called Lux in Arcana.
What type of show?
Like
sitcom?
Like yeah. Oh God. Oh man.
Musical?
Great costumes.
Off Broadway?
Great costumes. No, like a museum show. Where
an exhibit perhaps.
Where Lux in Arcana, which means like showing light on like the hidden things, which I think was their way of being like, see, it's secretive, but like this is the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
And they rolled out a set of, I think it was like 20 to 40 different
alien bodies.
It was just alien bodies.
Performed live autopsies.
Here are 40 different aliens we have in our secret archives. See, guys, nothing to fear.
They're all dead. Don't worry about
it. No, it was in Rome's Capitoline Museum, and it was just a bunch of documents that they were like, here's some examples of what's in there. For instance, a letter from Pope Pius IX to the, quote, President of the Confederate States of America, which was not exactly a thing at the time, or I guess maybe the Confederacy thought it was. But Jefferson Davis basically had written the Pope in an appeal to be like, hey, man, we're having some trouble over here, and we could really use your help.
Choose our side. Lincoln did as well, correct?
They both did, yeah. But they put on display the response to Jefferson Davis, which I don't understand because you didn't have a photocopier at the time. So what happened? Did you not send the letter? Did you write the letter? The letter went there, and then it got sent back?
That's a good question. You're saying how/why do they have that letter?
Yeah.
If it was a letter to Jefferson
Davis.
Was
it a correspondence that he wrote and then someone else wrote on like smaller paper so that it could be sent? You know, like I don't...
When were the first carbon copies a thing?
I I would
not
imagine
in the 1860s.
I would imagine after the Civil War, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was like, you know, someone in Davis's family had it and donated it back, or
which I know has happened as they get back certain things.
The Vatican has dumb money too. They probably go around and buy up
shit
a
out of
bunch of
museums,
stuff that
yeah.
they want to have control of.
I also wondered if the papacy has a rule similar to the U.S. presidency, where there's some sort of like you got to have a record of all the stuff you say because you're an important person, and so maybe it is something where
Just
like
2 copies of everything.
like they write it out, like here's my letter, and then they give it to some scribe whose entire job is to rewrite that letter,
or you dictate it to somebody and they just make
2
of
writings, 2 scribes at the same time, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's one example. There is this one I found kind of funny. Henry VIII's divorce request. Did you see? Did you see this one?
No, it sucks.
So Henry VIII wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, but he couldn't because he was already married to Catherine of Aragon. And so he's like, "Hey Pope man X, Pope man the 10th."
I'm going to be shocked if we make it through this episode without several angry emails, by the way.
Yeah, well, he asked the Pope for an annulment of his marriage with Catherine of Aragon so that he could...
What reason was given?
I don't know the specific reason. What I do know is that he sent a... hang on, let me find it.
Shit went bad real quick.
Shit went bad
You know what
real
I mean?
quick. It was...
That was the whole letter.
It was like a 6-foot-tall petition scroll signed by 80 clergymen and lords, all with their individual seals stamped all over it with like ribbons and shit.
Attesting to what? Like his wife really sucks.
She sucks, dude.
Hey,
Sucks. Shit went bad real quick. You know what I mean?
We're lords and clergymen, and like we appeal to your sensibilities. She's terrible. You got to let him out.
You're a piece of shit.
Is that the letter they sent back?
Yeah, probably. Actually, they did say no. They're
Great.
like, "Hey, nice big scroll, dude. Very pretty." No, you're being
You're a
kind of a
piece
dick
of
right now. Yeah. And then one more example of some of the stuff that they put on display to say no secrets here was actually letters from the Native American Ojibwe tribe in Canada from 1887. It was sent to Pope Leo the 13th. And it was basically a somewhat religious appeal. Like they were talking to the Pope as someone who was a great prayer, and they wanted to kind of connect over their sort of religious and spiritual beliefs. So yeah, it's like pretty interesting. I mean, that's like, that's 140-year-old document from around the world, and it was written in Ojibwe, and I don't know, like there's some interesting sort of asides in here. But again, to your point, none of this stuff is like transcendent or...
Well, and it's obviously very carefully curated. You're not going to select the things that are either like totally benign and boring, or that make you look bad,
right,
or that have actual sensitive information in them,
right.
And so you're hand-picking the 100 safest things that you can display.
Right, exactly.
So,
which is why...
what's really in there, though?
Which is why there are hundreds, maybe more, of conspiracy theories.
Oh, so many. And so little information about all of them. It's great.
I love that people are like, I bet this is in there.
Dude.
Oh, really? Did you like find it? No, but I bet it's in there. Okay, cool.
This one was really hard to find. There's so much speculation, and there's so many conspiracies about what's in there.
Yeah.
And there's literally no sourcing of anything for any of them.
Yeah.
Even when like very reputable places like The Atlantic or like whatever, pick your news source, are writing about these things. They're just like, people say this. Like,
do they?
Okay. I'm sure somebody has said that.
Right.
Great example of this. One of the speculations is that the Vatican has evidence of extraterrestrial life.
Sick. Aliens. Let's do this.
We
found the aliens, guys. Welcome to the What If Podcast.
In whatever form that might be, whether it's like scientific information or actual like artifacts or actual bodies or whatever. So if you Google like Vatican aliens, you will get 9 million results.
Hell yeah.
And I found so many different articles and YouTube videos and blog posts that were all like, here are the things that people think might be in there, right? And all of them say extraterrestrial life. None of them cite anything.
Sick.
The closest I could find, the one place that cited something was a blog post from like catholicstoday.com or something.
Tight.
That said...
.blogspot.com.
The headline was Alien Life and the Vatican, right?
Okay.
Cool headline. I'm going to read that article.
The Pope has talked about aliens since.
So, hold on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
This whole article was them reacting to an episode of Unsealed Alien Files, which, if you're not familiar, is basically the bootleg Ancient Aliens.
Which...
It's like an even wilder, even less based in reality version of Ancient Aliens with all the B-list guests.
And let's all just thank the Pope really quick that fucking exists. Because hell fucking yeah.
So everyone was referencing this article that was making fun of basically a fictional TV show.
Tight.
So I went and watched the episode today.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
And I'm going to quickly summarize some of the quote-unquote evidence that they provide in that episode.
On behalf of all of our listeners, I'd like to thank you for watching that bootleg-ass fucking Ancient Aliens episode today so we can benefit.
You know, sometimes you're going through YouTube and just...
Holy shit! Hey!
Yep.
It's on YouTube, by the way, if you want to watch this episode.
Oops, I landed in the weird part.
It's like all YouTube recommends to me these days.
I was going to say you live in the weird part.
Yeah. Okay, someone filmed a UFO near the Vatican around the time of Pope John Paul's funeral.
He's going up, man.
Direct quote from the deep-voiced narrator guy. The possibility that this craft came to pay its respects to the Pope and his people is more likely than you think. First question.
Boy, that's a good way of saying something incredibly generic, isn't
That's
it?
a great way of saying something is false.
Well, that's true. More likely than how likely do I think that is?
Right, that's step one is, I think it's extremely unlikely. So are you saying it's like 1% likely? Because I
Also-
think it's roughly 0.
1% likely is still a very bad percentage, but
Well-
it's more likely than I think, technically, by your judgment. I think the way cooler way they could have said that is that was his departure ship because he's going up to heaven in a spaceship.
Well, evidence point number 2.
Sick.
They went to the Ancient Aliens standby, classic argument. There are old paintings with things that look like UFOs in the background.
Dope. In the Vatican?
The Vatican is in possession of some of these.
Mm.
Therefore, either they know and or they're hiding evidence of it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Of course they are.
Because the paintings exist.
Of course they are.
Mm-hmm. Point number 3.
Yep.
Another direct quote. This is from, I forget the dude's name. One of the bootleg Ancient Aliens B-list celebrity guests.
Good enough.
Quote, it's very likely that some of the religious experiences of the past were in fact extraterrestrial.
I'm sorry.
We've now moved on to very likely from more likely than you think.
Okay.
It's taking a slightly stronger stance.
Yeah.
Very likely. That's got to mean more than 50%, right? Even likely would be more than 50%. We got to be talking like
You're
70
right.
plus.
Yes, I'd say a 2/3. Mm-hmm. So Moses in the burning bush is definitely just an alien.
Well, he doesn't say which ones.
Okay.
He just says religious experiences. Some.
Were aliens.
It's very likely that some of the religious experiences of the past were in fact extraterrestrial. Now, you may be wondering how that has anything to do with the Vatican. It does not. But
he said
aliens.
It, but aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Extraterrestrial, for what it's worth, could mean just outside of his planet. So maybe it's like they saw a comet. I'm coming to this guy's aid. I don't know if I should be or not.
You definitely should not be.
But
and then point 4 was, and there was no evidence to support this claim. Not that there was for any of the other ones, but this one should require it more than the others. They claim that there were elongated skulls excavated from underneath the Vatican.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
I seen them.
Basically. Fucking
what?
Bill Burns from his living room told me that this happened. So he's a lawyer and an ancient alien enthusiast.
I've seen them. Have you? Are there photos? No.
Fuck no.
But I've seen them.
Did you ever think maybe this guy's bullshitting you?
Yes.
I think this is what you were getting at earlier. The closest evidence of any like Vatican interest in aliens that I could actually find was that they hosted what they called a study week in 2009.
Okay.
Where they invited roughly 30 astronomers, biologists, geologists, and religious leaders to discuss the question of extraterrestrial life.
Yes.
And its possible existence.
Yes.
And in 2008, the Pope's chief astronomer, Father Gabriel Funes, F-U-N-E-S,
Yep.
stated that the existence of extraterrestrials does not preclude a belief in God, and that it is a question that should be explored by the Catholic Church.
And to my understanding, this led a significant amount of people at the time and since to go, whoa, why did you need to tell us that? Like,
yeah,
why did you need to say that aliens and God can both exist? Do you know something we don't know? Because no one was like, oh my God, there's aliens, but what about God? Like, no one had that thought until you guys were like, it's cool, they can both exist. And you're like, wait, do they both exist, guys?
I was under the impression that neither of them did.
Right, exactly.
Is it possible, and if so, classic ancient aliens?
Yeah, and if so,
that they were reacting to the scientific community at the time becoming more interested in and being able to search for extraterrestrial life more in terms of like Kepler finding more planets and better ability to detect what is on planets in terms of organic matter and possible signs of life.
Right.
That maybe that was slightly in anticipation of the direction that NASA and science in general was moving.
Sure.
And is moving.
Is heading. Yeah, I mean, I think
just in case tomorrow NASA says there are, some molecules on Europa.
they can be like, dude, we already told you guys this shit is fine, okay?
Right.
God's still real. Keep giving us your money. It's going to be okay. Have you...
God's even more powerful than we thought. He made this shit all over the place, not just on Earth.
Yeah. See, which that might be the way to do it.
That's got to be the argument, right?
If you're going to believe in God, that's the way...
I'm saying if the Catholic Church is going to like try and rectify those two seemingly conflicting ideas.
God is bigger than...
God made the whole universe, therefore...
Yeah, it just doesn't bode super well from people that were like literally murdering people for saying that the sun didn't revolve around the earth.
Ryan, look, if we want to get into what the Catholic Church has been right and wrong about, this episode's going to be no fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a lot of innocent people dying or having fucked up lives.
Good point. It's a good point.
So,
all right. Let's get back to the aliens.
Let's talk about premonitions of the end of the world.
Let's do that.
This is related to aliens also.
Ooh, give it to me.
Are you familiar with the 3 secrets of Fatima?
I am.
Hell yeah.
I am.
Did you know that it involves a UFO sighting?
I did.
Tight.
For those of you who don't know, I attended a Catholic university for a couple years. Not because I am or was Catholic.
Where they did not teach him who Jonah and Job were.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? That's a fair point. Just got them confused. That's all.
Sure.
No, but anyway, some of this stuff came up in a couple of my classes, and
aliens under the Vatican?
No, the Fatima stuff came up though.
Gotcha.
Brazil? No, South America though.
Yeah, it's Brazil.
Sick. I remembered.
No,
something.
sorry, Portugal.
Damn it. Never mind.
Same language.
Okay,
close enough.
You explain. I'll stop guessing.
Okay. There were 3 Portuguese shepherds, Lucia Santos and her cousins Jacinta and Francisco Marto, claimed to have seen a vision of Mary.
Yes, the Virgin Mary.
Starting on May 13th of 1917 and 6 times between May and October of 1917.
Yep.
They were given 3 secrets, as they describe them, or they were shown 3 things by this apparition, this vision of Mary.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was a vision of hell. So they saw...
Hi, I'm an important religious figure. Look at hell. Hey, kids. Hey, you kid, come here. Look at hell. Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry. Thank you. Hey, you little first grader. This is what eternal damnation looks like. God damn it.
The crystal fell on the floor. Our Lady showed us a great sea of fire, which was under the earth. Plunged into this fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating about in the conflagration. I don't even know what that word is.
Conflagration?
Yeah, sure, that one too. So basically, they saw a bunch of people on fire inside the earth.
Sick.
That was secret number 1.
That's where they are.
Secret,
That's what I heard.
secret number 2. Oh, fuck. Secret number 2 stated that World War I would soon end, but that a worse war would break out during the reign of Pope Pius XI, who was Pope from February of 1922 until February of 1939. This war would break out if Russia did not convert to Christianity. So now, after the kids have seen hell, got some important geopolitical updates for you.
Hey, are you a diplomat? No? Come here, I gotta tell you something anyway.
So...
These poor fucking kids,
Right?
man. You gotta go home and be like, hey, Dad, can you sit down for a second?
Where's Russia? Are we at war?
Dad, I'm scared.
So, I mean, she was right that World War I would end soon. And there was another world war that started just after the reign of Pope Pius, the 11th, because he died, I'm assuming, or stopped being Pope in February of 1939.
Stopped being Pope.
Well, don't you usually die?
You die.
There was one that retired, though, right?
Did they?
Wasn't it like a couple popes ago that a dude retired instead of dying?
I don't know. I thought you
Okay.
had to die to retire. I could be wrong.
Anyway, he died in February of 39. World War II started in September of 39. So maybe a little bit off, but also that start date is sort of like a European-based start date.
Sure.
And many Asian countries, especially Japan and China, consider the war to have started in 37 when Japan invaded China.
Got it. All right.
So
depending on who you ask,
yeah.
that was potentially an accurate premonition.
Important to note, these secrets or these visions were not reported or published until 1941, after all of these things had happened.
Oh.
So, just if you're keeping track at home.
I was born.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Well, I mean, it sounds really impressive until you realize that
It was
this
written
was all after the
fact.
fact. Secret 3 is where some of the conspiracies enter the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Secret 3 was originally not published in... So this stuff was published in Lucia's memoir in 1941.
Mm.
She left this part out, but allegedly wrote it down in 1943, and it was not made public until 2000, because apparently the Secret 3 was very damning or...
More damning than hell?
Well, much more, I guess, would have caused more of an uproar for the average person than saying that hell was real or that World War II had at this point already happened.
Yeah.
Or was happening.
Right.
So the official version of this Secret 3 is really long and confusing and old-timey sounding, but I guess I'll just read it.
Go ahead. Give it to him.
This is a quote from Lucia, or attributed to Lucia. After the 2 parts which I have already explained, At the left, Our Lady, and at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. It gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, and the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance!" And we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it. We saw a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father, other bishops, priests, men, and women religious going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching the Holy Father, passed through a big city in ruins, blah, blah, blah. She goes on to describe basically like the end times.
Okay.
And people being saved because of God.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Where them aliens at, though?
Well, so to wrap this part up, there's a lot of speculation that is not actually what Secret 3 was.
Oh.
And that it was held onto for, because it is weird that like the Catholic Church held onto it presumably in their archives.
Yes.
For almost 60 years.
Yes. Yeah, that is pretty weird.
Even though there was a lot of pressure from people to please release it.
Right.
And then in 2000, they released this version that a lot of people don't believe is what she actually said.
And is it just they don't believe it because it's like too detailed or
it conflicts with other reports of how she wrote this stuff down? Like,
got it.
And her writing style and who it would have been delivered to, who would have had possession of it.
So they think it was finessed.
Yes. And that it was not, what was released was maybe someone's interpretation of what she had said, but not literally word for word what she had written.
I saw like some gray dudes. They were really tall and, oh, so it was a man wearing a white robe? No. Yep, it was a man wearing a white robe.
I also learned that in 1981, a guy hijacked an Aer Lingus flight, and his demand was that Secret 3 be published.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm.
What? That's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, it was
Did not know that.
A dude named an Australian guy named Lawrence Downey.
Okay.
He hijacked a plane by going into the bathroom and dousing himself in gasoline.
Oh, that's not how you do it, bud.
Well,
I'm no expert in this, but that just seems like not a very fun way to do it.
in his statement after the fact, he claimed to have been a Trappist monk in residence at Trefontaine Abbey in the 50s before he was expelled from the order for punching a superior in the face. He took a
Not
job.
very monkish, my guy.
He took a job at a shrine in Portugal devoted to Our Lady of Fatima.
Devoted to punching elders in the face.
At the time of the hijacking, the third secret was known only to the Pope and other senior figures in the Catholic Church. Downey's statement called on the Vatican to release this secret to the public.
Interesting.
So he used the plane
Strange.
hijacking as a platform to ask for the release of this statement. None of these things worked out well for him. He just went to jail.
That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the aliens.
Yes.
One of the things that the Virgin Mary told these kids about was that she was going to appear in a specific location in Portugal on October 13th, 1917. So the kids went around telling people this, like, hey, if you don't believe us, check this shit out.
Go pop your popcorn, motherfuckers.
Go hang out in this field on October 13th.
Yep.
An estimated 30 to 40,000 people showed up. And they claim to have seen, after a period of rain, dark clouds breaking, the sun appearing as a quote, opaque spinning disc in the sky.
Whoa.
It cast multicolored lights across the landscape. The sun was then reported to have careened towards the earth before zigzagging back up to its normal position. This part is hilarious. Witnesses reported that their previously wet clothes had become suddenly and completely dry, as well as the wet and muddy ground which had been previously soaked. That's how the sun normally works. It dries things out because heat. Some people also reported seeing rose petals falling just from the sky that then disappeared upon hitting the ground.
Crazy.
So, Unsealed Alien Files
Yes.
says, of course, that was an extraterrestrial visitation. That was not a vision of the Virgin Mary. Or, in my opinion, a bunch of people staring at the sun for too long. Which probably will have some weird effects on your eyes.
A glimmering disc in the sky could be.
Yeah, it turns out you're not supposed to stare directly at the sun.
Yeah, it'll happen. That's it. I mean, it's interesting though. 30 or 40,000 people, like that's a lot of people. And I don't know if there's some collective report of that and the kids said the date was real. It could be interesting.
Yeah.
I also like, I like the idea that they're like, look, we can't, like maybe the third secret had something to do with the date. And they're like, well, we can't share the date because if we share the date and then we're wrong, then we look like big dumb idiots.
Huh?
You know, the third secret was hidden.
Right.
So maybe even though the kids were talking about it, maybe like the prophecy or premonition of the date plus what was going to happen was somehow contained in the third secret. So they couldn't release that because they're like, this will all look like bullshit if whatever they say happens doesn't happen. And they're like, oh, tight, the aliens did come. We're good.
So there's that. That might be a thing that's hanging out in there, is a description of the end times, according to some kids in Portugal.
Right.
Which I guess the Vatican thought was important enough to keep secret for 60 years or possibly longer.
Yeah, which, like, that to me is the weirdest part. That it seemed worth hiding.
I could see a lot of other explanations for that too, of like, maybe it didn't seem worth sharing because they don't really share anything from the archives.
But if you shared the first two.
Well, no, the first two were published in a memoir.
Oh.
Right.
But then why wasn't the third one published in the memoir? Was it because it was being held by the Vatican?
No. Lucia, who wrote her memoir, chose not to put it in there because she found it, for whatever reason, found it disturbing or too personal or who knows.
Okay.
And then later, after her memoir was published, people asked her about it. She wrote it down for her priest, who also did not see fit to publish it.
Yoink.
Gave it to the Vatican. They held on to it for 60 years.
Got it.
And then published maybe some version of it, maybe their own take on it.
Got it. All right.
Last weird thing that's probably in the Vatican, but maybe not. The devil himself.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
That's tight.
I was reading an article today about Father Amorth.
Okay.
Who until recently, when he died, was the Holy See's chief exorcist.
Oh.
For 25 years.
Bro.
And claims to have done in excess of 70,000 exorcisms. Which I don't think is possible.
That's not mathematically possible.
So if this
25 years?
Yeah. You want to do that math real quick?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now.
What's 70,000 divided by 25 or the other way around? No, that way around.
No, you were right the first time.
God damn, I'm dumb sometimes.
So you're doing 2,800 exorcisms a year.
He was doing 7.5 a day every day for 25 years.
A lie was born.
In any case.
Yeah. Maybe he would just get up in front of crowds of 10,000 people and be like, "Be gone!" He's like, sick.
Fuck you, devil, get out!
I'm done here.
You're all saved.
You've been exorcised. Have a good day.
He would just stand.
Go pour a glass of red wine.
Stand on his balcony with a super soaker of holy water and scream at people.
Just spray the whole crowd
You're
down.
saved. You're saved. Fuck you, devil.
Pew, pew, pew. He gets a parade route and he just puts like squirt guns on either side and just sprays the crowds down.
Throws water balloons at people.
It's like the summer fire trucks and
So here's at least one angry email we're getting. Your super soaker holy water joke was in poor taste.
You guys, if you can't find that funny, maybe we should break up.
We ain't for you. He said, quote, "The devil resides in the Vatican and you can see the consequences."
Wait, who said that?
This is Father Amorth, chief
this
exorcist.
is the dude who did all those exorcisms?
Uh-huh.
Damn, that's kind of a fucking buck wild thing to say. When did
Yeah.
he say that?
This was like mid to late 2000s. And blamed... See, here's the thing. He blamed a lot of the, like, bad parts of Catholicism on the devil, which seems extremely convenient to me.
Yeah.
And also, isn't it your job to make sure that that doesn't happen? So best case scenario, you're saying you suck at your job.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he also said, this is not really related, but I thought it was interesting. He said that The Exorcist gave a
That should be
quote,
the subtitle of our show.
not related, but I found it
This
interesting.
is not really related, but I thought it was interesting.
He said that the film, The Exorcist, gave a quote, substantially exact, end quote, impression of what it was like to be possessed by the devil.
Yikes.
I didn't know something could be, isn't exact just exact? What does substantially exact mean?
There are degrees of exactness.
So substantially exact, does that mean like very?
Like exact is modifiable. It was like relatively exact
Okay.
versus it was extremely exact.
He then went on to say that, quote, from their mouths, he's talking about people who are possessed, anything can come out. Pieces of iron as long as a finger, but also rose petals.
Yuck.
He also stated that both Hitler and Stalin were possessed by the devil.
Or they were just super shitty people.
Again, seems like just you're making an excuse. Also, if Hitler was possessed by the devil, maybe the Catholic Church should have done something about it instead of just being neutral on the subject.
Hey, my dude, could you have filled up a couple of extra super soakers and taken those over the border for me? That would have been helpful.
Would have helped all of us.
Um,
So apparently the devil's hanging out in there too.
I guess just straight up, they just got him chained to a furnace down there. Like
No, he's just running around possessing people, I guess, all
No,
willy-nilly.
they don't put him. They wouldn't chain him to the furnace because he'd like it. They got throw him in an ice box and he's just pissed all day. It sucks, man. I'm cold.
I don't have any fun stories about these, but I've heard that there are also details of Jesus's bloodline that
Yes.
are housed in the secret archives.
Archives. I heard that one too. If you don't know, here's another angry email we're about to get.
Tight.
The Bible in its current form and the series of books that are in the Bible is not the eternal form of the Bible.
What?
So is that a sarcastic what? Got it.
No.
Okay.
Way.
So the Bible has taken different shapes. There have been books added and subtracted from the Bible over time.
They used to build round books.
There build round books.
Nothing. Keep going.
There were also books that were discovered by writers around the same time who wrote about a man named Jesus, but those were not included in the King James version or the contemporary Bibles of today. That being said, there are stories about Jesus that paint Jesus in a different light than he was seen by the Bible. And the Dead Sea Scrolls is an example of one of those types of books that paints stories from the time differently than they may or may not have been recounted in the Bible. That being said, there are a significant amount of theories that if there were stories in writing from any time that were damaging to the story of Christ's divinity, Christ's bloodline, Christ potentially procreating and having a child, that would go against the entire story that had been told up to that point, that the Vatican would see it in their benefit to procure those stories and hide them and potentially not make them indexable or researchable by people in a basement under a parking lot.
Yep. Also, lastly, they have books of magic spells, apparently.
No, not lastly.
Oh.
Wait, keep going.
No, that was all. I was going to end the episode there.
Oh, were you? Okay, wait. I have a couple more because there's a couple really fun ones that I
Okay.
think are worth covering. You're
Show
right.
me what you got.
Christ's bloodline. This one that I find quite hilarious. Some folks have said that the archives are potentially home to the world's largest collection of pornography.
Yeah.
Books that contained visible erotica.
As opposed to invisible erotica?
I guess, yes, no. Visible erotica.
That's my new thing.
Invisible erotica. Put it on the list, dude. That's a great band name. That's a great band name.
Stare at blank pieces of A4 paper. It's a callback.
Just concentrate real hard. But Copenhagen's Museum of Erotica apparently references the Vatican having erotica
How
in
would
it.
they know?
I have no idea. Maybe one of the researchers got to go in there and he was like, I found boobs. There's boobs in here.
What are you researching? Y'all got any dicks in there?
Biology?
I'm kind of into butts.
The human form? I don't know. And lastly, I have a bunch of notes on this, but it's a bunch of malarkey, so we won't get into the story.
That's exactly what the kind of stories we get into.
Should we do one more story? Do we have time for one more story?
We have as much time as we want. People can turn it off if
That's a good point.
or come back to us later.
Let's do one more fun story of potentially what lies in the basement of the Vatican Secret Archives.
Okay.
Bigfoot. There is claimed to be plans for a device known as the Chronovisor.
Oh, okay. I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Since we're at an hour and this story is fucking wild as hell.
It is really wild. Should we do it on the Patreon this week?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do it on the Patreon.
Or we should do it next week on this show. Because I hate Patreon teases. I think that's a dick move.
I think it's a dick move too, but sometimes it's like, well, we only have like 15 more minutes. It's not really enough for a part 2.
Oh, it absolutely is.
You think we could do a part 2 on the Chronovisor?
Yeah.
Okay. If you think it's part 2able, we can do a part 2.
I don't want to jam this story into like a couple minutes.
All right, that's fair. We'll do this.
We will do it at some point in the future.
We'll do it at some point in the future. Maybe we'll put it on a Patreon and
That story is wild as hell, and there's a lot to it.
or we'll put it on a part 2. That'll be the teaser, the plans for the Chronovisor, and we'll
It's not just plans. It's down there, baby.
It's down there. They be using it.
They've seen things.
They have seen it. Uh-oh. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap things up there then, and we'll tease that for either the Patreon this week or next week's episode. We love you guys. Thank you very much. Just a quick reminder. Speaking of the Patreon, last week's episode is free. Go check it out. Patreon.com/whatifpodcast if you want to get 60 plus additional episodes and another episode every single week. It's only $5 a month. Pop over there. Otherwise, if you want to send us an email, it's hi@whatifpodcast.com. Voicemails is 612-246-4614. We love you. And as always, we will see you next week.
Nobody cares